What do you got for me today, Timmy?
Well, let's tell people about our podcast, John.
All right. What's the title of that podcast again? I'm bald.
I'm blind, and we're
Still
buddies.
We're buddies.
Awesome.
We've been friends for 30 years.
30 years.
What do you have for me today, Timmy C? Happy Valentine's Day to you, pal.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. I scrambled and Uber Eats delivered flowers today, so I have those for Blue Leaf. How about you?
Katie and I, we kind of are low key on Valentine's Day. It's kind of manufactured, obviously, out of nowhere. But I used to work in the restaurant industry for a number of years, and I'm convinced that your brain power is inversely proportional to whether or not you go out on Valentine's Day, because it's chumps. It's just an absolute chump holiday. I mean, you're packed in like sardines. People are in these restaurants paying obscene amounts, blah, blah, blah. We're going to walk into town with the kids. It is cold here on the East Coast. I mean, cold. And that kind of makes me a little bit happy because misery loves company. Today is the parade for the Super Bowl champion Eagles. So, yeah.
Okay. They'll have to light more fires in trash cans, I suppose. Huh?
Well, somebody made a joke, and I don't know how, there's always an element of truth to every joke that, let's peg the over-under at 1.5. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, how many people are going to die at the parade?
Oh, my goodness.
That's not funny. No. So... But speaking of Valentine's Day, by the way, I'm in sales obviously now, and I usually will send out an email that will, call out Valentine's Day, and I'll say, don't forget it's Valentine's Day, and without fail, once one customer, two customers a year will come back and be like, "Holy God, you just saved me so much heartache. I totally forgot until I saw that email." So it's kind of my pay it forward, I suppose, for the month. Yeah. So yeah.
Hallmark,
and you had an interesting story about last episode, right? You have some updates on episodes generally, and then tell everybody about the dubbing issue. That was kind of interesting when you were telling me.
Okay. So our podcast now has been listened to in Vietnam and Puerto Rico. I'm thinking the West Side Story Maria Puerto Rico link might be why some search engine found it. I don't know. And our episode More DEI is going to be headed for our most popular episode ever. So folks, if you haven't checked that out, check it out. I think it's quality work. And so, last week,
I mean, it was done by you and me. It's of course, it's quality.
Of course, right?
I mean, it's top notch, right?
It's kind of redundant, I suppose.
I mean, duh, right?
Duh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, last week, so they changed how audio files are recorded on my podcast software. So John and I were completely out of sync. So we're talking like my track was 8 minutes longer than his, so I had to align them. So I found an echo of myself on John's track when he was setting up his headphones and then lined it up. So if it sounds like we're actually talking to each other last week, that's because I did that. So...
Well, we were actually talking to each other. It just didn't record correctly, right?
Yeah, it didn't record correctly. So
I gotcha. Did you, speaking of which, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I watched a bit. I went over with friends, and it's food and chatting and commercials. And, I really wasn't watching it for the football.
Well, there wasn't much football,
no.
To be perfectly candid. So this is going to lead into today's episode, which we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite ads, of course. It wasn't a very good game. The Eagles really sort of, for lack of a better term, put the hurt on the Kansas City Chiefs. And my son, of course, was broken up. But it hasn't been a difficult run for Charlie as a Chiefs fan, because my buddy goes, well, what's he going to have to wait another year before they're back in it?
Right.
But it reminds me, and my kids always yell at me that I bring everything back to Notre Dame. But do you remember the Notre Dame Alabama game about 12 years ago when Eddie Lacy, the national championship game, was just running through holes that were as wide as a car?
Oh my goodness!
And we got our what's kicked. And I've always said this. Do you agree with this notion? If I know in advance, which of course you don't, but if I know my team's going to lose, I would much rather mean it. Like, just that's how that Super Bowl went. I mean, that was not left to the refs. There was not like one little play that could have gone differently and the Chiefs would have had a chance. I mean, the Eagles really kind of put the hurt on them, right?
They did. And I appreciate it when it doesn't come down to a call. Those are the worst, when a ref's decision and enforcement of a rule could change an outcome. So I'm glad it was clear cut from that point of view.
but it wasn't very, very entertaining at all. I mean, it was pretty bad game, actually.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So
we were joking about in high school, there's a mercy rule that if you're up by 35 points, they don't stop the clock. And we're like, oh man, I just hope the mercy rule would go into effect here.
Was there any ads that jumped out at you or anything that you were going to remember?
Yeah, well, so we were watching, and there was an ad about breast cancer screening, which is important. And I joked to the people there, I'm like, next thing we're going to see is colonoscopies and prostate exams. And by the second half, there was an ad for colonoscopies.
Get out, really?
Yeah, so I missed the prostate exam call, but I just knew it.
Well, I'll tell you, when the game is going badly and your son's screaming and yelling, I mean, he's just like I am watching Notre Dame. I'm not enjoyable, nor is he. I was getting up to do the dishes and do this and do that, kind of entertain myself. So I might have missed some ads, but a couple of them jumped out at me. One was, of course, the Uber Eats ad. I love that whole.
With McConaughey and Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. I don't know who came up with that idea that football was created to sell you food, but it is a genius marketing idea. I'll tell you, it's got some traction.
That was on my list too.
Yeah, I like the one where he's like, "What would you name the team from Buffalo, Bill? What would you name it, Bill?" It was just, I thought that was extremely creative. The one with Matt Damon, he seems to be in a commercial in the Super Bowl. He and Ben Affleck every year.
Yeah.
And the one with Matt Damon where he's got the long lost brother that's David Beckham. Did you see that one? I
did. I didn't really get that. That didn't really connect with me, but I guess it was funny.
It was funny. It was goofy and I enjoyed that one. And then of course Google seems to have some sort of sentimental advertising team. But did you see the one about the guy going for the job interview and he's asked to describe his most difficult position and he's talking about being a father? Did you see that one?
I did. The AI creeped me out so much I couldn't appreciate the commercial.
Huh. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It creeped me out. I did. Did you like the one where the guys were launching beer cans with the leaf blower?
I did. Actually, that's Shane Gillis. The fellow who's in that is the fellow that films here. He's from Westchester. He went to Westchester University. And I did enjoy that. And actually, I loved the part when he's like, yeah, most of my money went into this. It's like a lawnmower that's also a smoker or something.
Yeah.
It's like, most of my money's in this. And he's like, go easy. The HOA's already on me. And I started laughing because I can relate to that idea.
Yes, totally.
So, yeah. Hey, before I forget too, by the way, let's do the trivia question. And then I wanted to mention a couple movies. You know how, and I've gotten feedback, some movies that I forgot to call out. And I feel remiss in doing that. So I figured if there's a handful that you remember this week, is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. So the trivia question last week was it's now Devontae Smith. He is number 5, and you got Reggie Bush correct.
Yep. That
have won the Heisman Trophy, the national title, and the Super Bowl. So, if you're a football player, that's a pretty good resume, right? Yeah. To have won all of those. And there are 5 people that have done it. Devontae Smith becomes the 5th. Previous to that was Reggie Bush. Do you know who the other 3 are, Timmy?
Peyton Manning.
Nope. He didn't win the Heisman. He was our year.
Oh, man.
It was actually Charles Woodson who did win the Heisman our year. He won the Heisman. Michigan won the national title our senior year, and then he won it with the Green Bay Packers.
With the Packers, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a corner/safety, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And he is still the only primarily defensive player to have won the Heisman. So that's kind of yeah. And so he is the one. And then there is Marcus Allen, who actually, when you go through the resume of Marcus Allen, he has lived quite the football career. Mm-hmm. He won the Heisman, USC won the national title, and of course, he won the Super Bowl with the Raiders. And then the third is Tony Dorsett. It's actually Tony Dorsett. I don't know where that was changed. I think it was actually for the marketing campaign for the Heisman, the same way that Joe Theismann is actually Joe Theismann.
Oh,
did you know that?
No, that's cool, though.
Yeah, Notre Dame, somebody in their PR department changed it to Theismann to rhyme with Heisman. And he didn't win. He didn't win it, though. But Tony Dorsett's the other one. Pitt won. He won the national title. And, of course, he played for the Dallas Cowboys when they were in that run in the late 70s, early 80s. So, yeah. But that leads to this week's question, which is, again, another football question. This is also an interesting one. There are 4 players who have won the Heisman Trophy. And you can tell I love the Heisman. I don't know why. There's something about winning that would appeal to me. That have won the Heisman Trophy and have gone on to become the Super Bowl MVP. Ooh. Can you name those 4? Nope. Got a guess, Timmy?
I want to say like Thurman Thomas is in there, but they never won a Super Bowl, so
no. And he didn't. He was phenomenal at Oklahoma State, but no, he did not win the Heisman either. So, But any movies, real quick, before I forget, that came to mind that you forgot that we should talk about?
I really liked, it's worth one watch, The Sixth Sense. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that was a great movie. Just
He's from
makes
this area,
sense.
M. Night Shyamalan. He's from the Philadelphia area. Yeah, that is a very, very... But again, once you see it, it's kind of like Usual Suspects that we talked about last week, right?
I think so. I think Usual Suspects has more rewatch potential. But it's a great movie. So
okay. You also texted me Apocalypse Now. You and I were, for those that are listening, all tens and tens of you, Timmy and I were texting back and forth movies that we forgot because things just kind of pop in. But you had mentioned Apocalypse Now. Yeah, that's also a good one.
That's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. I had mentioned, I had called out Caddyshack in our last episode, but I want to stress that, number one. Yep. Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And Beverly Hills Cop, which you said you have not seen, which surprised me.
Yeah, I've not seen it. I should. It looks fun. I like Eddie Murphy. So.
Well, actually, those two movies are tied together forever because Eddie Murphy was actually supposed to be in Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, but he couldn't because the conflict he had was Beverly Hills Cop. So
I think both movies are better for it.
I agree with that. That's cool. And then No Country for Old Men. Katie loves that movie. Have you ever seen that?
Nope.
Yeah. You've never seen it?
No.
Yeah, there is an argument. Siskel and Ebert, I think they have argued it is the most perfect movie ever made. Now, what drives them to say something like that? I don't know, but I will tell you it's immensely entertaining. How about Midnight Run? Robert De Niro?
No.
Oh, Timmy, you got to step up to the plate here, pal.
I do.
Yeah. What about Silence of the Lambs?
Haven't seen it.
You have to. You have got to have seen Hannibal Lecter.
I'm not into that genre. I mean, it's just not.
Well, it's the only. It's the only quote unquote horror movie to ever win Best Picture. Huh. So, and The Town. Have you seen that? Speaking of Ben Affleck.
No.
Have you seen that? That is very good. Very, very good. That comes highly recommended. So,
cool. And
just on the downside, though, the movie I was trying to remember that was awful, and I don't mean to say this because, people put their heart and soul into making these movies. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Love that movie. But it's called Killers of the Flower Moon, which my dad said is a phenomenal book, but he could understand how it couldn't translate into a movie. So sometimes maybe I should get the book and read that. It's called Killers of the Flower Moon. It had Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio. I just found it to be immensely boring, disappointing, and so forth, especially with that cast.
So speaking of books, John, I just sent you a copy of the book I've recommended you read this year. So it's on your way. War on the West by Douglas Murray.
Good.
And I'm almost through Gatekeepers, the one you recommended. So.
Right, Chris Whipple. It's good, right?
Yeah, it's a good book.
Did you get through the part about Carter and Reagan where he says, I understand I wouldn't be president if you were still chief of staff or something along those lines?
Yeah, Watson, I think was his chief of staff.
Jack Watson.
Yeah, Jack Watson,
Yeah.
That was cool.
Your father, I don't want to embarrass him, but people of advanced age like you and me, approaching 50 and so forth, and your parents, of course, are older than that, probably shouldn't be sending them beef jerky. But you know what? The heck with it. Your dad hopefully enjoys it. So
Yeah. My mom definitely did. So.
Yeah? Good. So, Timmy, you have strong feelings because let me just lay some statistics and then I'm going to pause and let you take over. Mm-hmm. Gambling and sports betting particularly is an enormous, and by enormous, I mean enormous industry. It's estimated at $25 billion plus, which is about 15 to 20% of the total gambling in the United States, sports gambling in the United States annually is laid on the Super Bowl. It is $150 billion, according to estimates. It's a $150 billion industry. I always say there is a reason that casino owners are billionaires. It's not because they lose. I tend to think about sports gambling the way I think of what I would consider to be victimless crimes. And by victim, of course, I mean the only person that's harmed is themselves. And of course, I understand, believe me, I do. When somebody's a drug addict, it has an impact on the family and so forth. I'm not saying that, but it's what's classically referred to as victimless crimes. And along those lines would be things like prostitution, drug use, gambling. I tend to believe that the best place for government is to legalize, heavily regulate them, and control them, because I just think it's impossible to fight against human nature and human behavior. You come at it from a completely different perspective, which is you've seen the net effect of it from a psychiatric standpoint. Tell me why I'm wrong, Tim.
All right. So just some more data on this. I think, was it about $1.5 billion was bet on the Super Bowl alone? Did you see that?
No, it's $25 billion.
Is it on the Super Bowl alone?
$25 billion.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, well, it's probably $1.5 billion like per quarter or so, like on certain plays on the over under. Like, no, it's significant.
So I have a couple thoughts on this. So first of all, this really became an issue after a Supreme Court decision in 2018, where before that you were basically just gambling in Las Vegas. And so 23 states
in AC, in Atlantic City.
In Atlantic City.
Sports gambling was legalized. I think sports gambling was legalized in Vegas, but not in AC, which again, I think indicates to me it's an impossible area to regulate. And I just find it to be disingenuous. Like either legalize it or don't. But go ahead.
Okay. So since that legalization, problem gambling looks like by some estimates is up 30%. If you look at the states where it's legalized versus not, the states where it's legalized, bankruptcies have risen significantly. So I'm going to relate it to substances because as an addiction psychiatrist, that's one thing I know. So, in the highlands in Colombia, people would chew on coca leaves to give them a little boost while they're working in the fields, right? That was sort of culturally regulated. It was normal. So what do we do as human beings? We make crack cocaine, right? Which is cheap, gives you a much higher high, a quicker high, and it's easy to distribute. And then we have a crack epidemic. So the traditionally gambling was you go to the potentially seedy place, or you call the shady guy and you put your bet in once or twice a year, on the World Series or the Super Bowl. But now you bet that it's advertised, it's on the phone, which is always with you, and it is engineered to give you dopamine hits, the little small prop bets that seem reinforcing when we all think we know what's going to happen next, right? That gets you hooked. And they also notify you and market to you. Anybody that gives you $50 in free money to start with, they know what they're doing. So to, compare it to your victimless crime notion, it would be saying, okay, prostitution is a victimless crime, but they've got a lady sitting in your lap, nibbling on your ear, like all the time. All the barriers have been broken down.
The peripatetic nature, the availability of it on your cell phone, I get. But again, my question is it gambling or is it the advertising? If you want to make the argument that the advertising of gambling is problematic, I will agree with you, because, the NFL and Major League Baseball, they try to act holier than thou. And then they say in the halftime show today, brought to you by DraftKings or by Caesars or what have you. I think human nature, such as it is,
but it's not just the gambling. It's the prevalence and it's the system that allows you quick reinforcement throughout a game, right? You place one bet on the Super Bowl, you would do that days before, you'd wait for the event, and you'd learn an outcome, right? But this time you can be sitting with the Super Bowl, throwing away, small bits of money after, who's going to catch the next play? Are they going to get a first down? And all those little hits are so compelling to the human brain. So it's not just the advertising, it's actually the structuring of the software. And if you go away for a while, they start to send you notifications like, where you been? There's an NBA game tonight,
Right. But how is this any different as you see it from, for instance, legal, but obviously poor life choices such as smoking, or, I drink too much, I'm sure, it's not impacting my life, but, based on recommendations for this or that, how is this any different than somebody who decides to engage in an adult choice in having a cigar or a cigarette or what have you? I find it difficult to separate the two. I think intellectually consistency is more important to me than piecemeal. And it seems like that's just piecemeal.
For example, John, if you made a law that said all sports betting has to be conducted in person on paper, right?
Okay.
I might be okay with that, right? But otherwise you're leveraging ubiquitous technology to take advantage of human psychology in ways that people they know what they're doing. There's a reason it's a huge money-making industry, right?
But couldn't the same thing apply to social media? I mean, they know how brains are wired and they know what gets people. I mean, that's why negative runs.
You know what I think about social media.
As do I. But we haven't tried to outlaw that. I mean, they're trying to ban TikTok, but the, moral compass that he is, the president, is saying otherwise. So, here's a perfect example. Let me read this to you and hear your thoughts. Okay. Mm-hmm. George Will, just this week, talking about betting. Mm-hmm. And he said, look, 45 states in the District of Columbia. And it's important to remember, as you said, there was a federal law that was passed in 1992 that outlawed sports gambling, but for Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Since they have overturned that law in 2018, 38 states now have done it, right? Mm-hmm. But he says 45 states in the District of Columbia encourage gambling by incessantly advertising their government-run lotteries. Casino slot machines, a gambler's worst bet, generally keep less than 15% of a gambler's money. State lotteries, by contrast, keep about 40%, proving once again that the private sector is preferable. And he says, look, state-run lotteries are gambling for the lazy. Neither information nor thinking helps. Sports gambling, however, is different. Much of today's sports gambling is harmless recreation, and much deploring of it contains harmful insinuations about people. Meaning, are we not taking away people's volition and ability to make, yes, bad choices?
Yeah, okay. But I would say I am happy with crack being outlawed.
I'm not.
You're not.
I don't think there's. I don't think there's any difference. And again, I understand the power of it. I don't think there's any difference between that and alcohol, in terms of its fundamental essence, which is if you're going to sit at your house and do crack, fine. Where it becomes a problem with the law is if you get behind the wheel of an automobile or endanger others.
What if you're supposed to give child support and you go bankrupt because of gambling? Is that a victim of the crime?
But that happens all the time, Timmy. People spend their money in idiotic ways all the time. I think the argument you're making, which I can see through, but I'm not sure how you separate the two, is that these are so powerfully addictive and play off of human emotions much more so than others. I get it. The quick hit of...
And the ubiquity of technology. Right, like I say, if you wanted to have sports,
right? But isn't that a testament? Isn't that a testament to human ingenuity that we've made technology so readily available that now you can have these problems? I mean, this is a first world issue.
Problem. No
question.
I can see that. Yeah.
Well, tell me more from your perspective, though. Is it gambling per se, or is it just the ubiquitousness?
I think it's the ubiquitousness and the way they've structured the betting system to these. So for folks who don't know, they're called prop bets. It's like, somebody will have over 70 yards rushing, and people can...
You could have a prop bet on the coin flip, for God's sake.
Yes.
Do you know that? Yeah, you can have a prop bet on what color the Gatorade was going to be.
So it breaks the whole game down instead of one wager into all kinds of small wagers, which the human brain doesn't know how to process probability well enough to win, right? You play blackjack well, you have a decent chance against the house, right? But there's so many bets coming at you so quickly as part of the entertainment experience that you're not making smart bets, right? And you're turning over your money in this sort of way. And I don't know. I think it's a problem. And
Timmy, when we talked before, I agree. I again, I'm not saying you're wrong. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying.
I could be wrong.
Wow. we should play that on a loop for your wife for Valentine's Day. I'm wrong. When we talked, going back a couple months ago, when we talked about COVID, you said, look, treat people like they're adults. Give them the information. Let them make the decisions, even if the information is bad. How is not the same principle being violated by advocating what you're advocating? Meaning, I just think I understand what you're saying, but it seems to me that you're trying to be in parentis locus, which is basically, for lack of a better term, government will take care of you. People who have this degenerate issue, and I throw $10 on a game during the course of the season. I probably bet $100 to $200. I think I won $55 one time and probably broke even for the season, but it's not a problem. I'm done now. The season's over. But it does find it to be fun. And again, I get what you're saying, that that's a $10 bet. But is this not just appealing to people that otherwise have this? I think the argument that you're making, or that I could rest easier with, is the intensity of advertising. As you pointed out, make these people show up to the actual counters to place the bet, limit the ability to, chase losses, as it were, meaning you lost this prop bet, you shouldn't be able, there should be a 7-minute waiting period. I mean, they do this with the stock market, where they'll have, things that kick in that close the market so that people will calm down, right?
Right. Yeah, I think those, and I think the difference with COVID is COVID was essentially weighing one's own personal risk in the face of unknown data. And there's a lot of, it wasn't a bunch of little choices. Really, it was one, big choices where you had to stop and consider. And I think the last thing they want you to do on this is stop and consider, right?
Well, okay, let's flip this paradigm on its head. To me, that's an issue of life and death. COVID, this is somebody's money. Nobody's going to prison. We don't have debtor's prison anymore. And I'm not excusing it. Somebody going bankrupt and having the inability to, support their children and so forth, that's shameful. But I think that's going to happen anyway. Absent, I think that people who are prone to this behavior, and by the way, there's a reason 38 states have quickly filled in the void. It is a tremendous moneymaker for the states.
Well, I guess what I've read is there's some question whether it's a net moneymaker because they wind up having to provide money back in other ways,
And rehabilitation counseling and gambling and bankruptcies and so forth. Yeah. But could not the same thing apply to obesity? I mean, the net effect of obesity on our health system is tremendous, is it not?
People have to eat, John. They don't have to gamble.
Fair.
This is a problem we don't need to have, right?
Fair. Now, have you always felt this way about gambling? Because you were raised Midwest, pretty religious and so forth. There seems to be a sort of, this is bad behavior, if you will, for lack of a better term. Or is this just something that's become more pronounced as you've seen the net effect of it from your practice as being a doctor?
Yeah, not so much from my practice, but I think from my understanding of technology and how it's just so leveraged. I've played slots. I've done, video poker, that sort of thing.
I just always find whenever somebody says video, the programmers are going to program that you're going to lose. It has to be live to me, right?
Right.
You can't beat a computer, right? Anyhow.
So I mean, I've done a lot. I don't have, I agree that at some level it's probably okay, but this is just too much.
Okay, here's the key question, because again, and Obama talked about this in a recent interview. He said there are brilliant people who can identify a problem, can talk eloquently about it, can tell you all the things that need to be addressed and so forth. And then you turn around and you say, okay, solve the problem. And I don't mean to put you on the spot on a live podcast, but aside from making people show up, fill out the ticket, okay, I'd be fine with that. I would also be fine with curtailing advertising, but there's so much money to be made in advertising. They don't advertise cigarettes, and they have the Surgeon General's warning and so forth.
They're still selling cigarettes.
Right, they are. And that's my point. Maybe the same principle applies to gambling, but that's just not going to happen because there's too much money to be made. And again, as tends to be the case in most instances, follow the money. Do you have any other solutions that you think could help curtail this?
I think, rules on betting intervals, perhaps for the software, that you can only make 3 bets in a 5-hour period. Things like that might get people out of the flow
You're kind of getting Big Brother there, but I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I-
Or alternatively, if you could have voluntary, okay, if I lose $300, the system shuts down. You should enable people to do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that makes sense. The other thing, I think you should totally outlaw betting on college sports. I don't think there's value to be had there, and I think there's plenty of betting to go around. And I think with young people, with who although they have NIL, there's incentives to alter outcomes. Even with prop bets, think about it, John. You drop one pass, right? That could mean a lot of difference in a prop.
Oh,
bet,
I see what you're saying.
right?
The probability of non too savory players being involved, giving the
Yeah.
wide receiver for North Dakota State an extra $500 if he accidentally drops a pass.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that was part of the reason that professional sports had always said we're never
Yeah.
going to go to Vegas, and
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to have lasted. There's now the Golden Knights who have won the Stanley Cup. There is, the Raiders, of course, and now the soon to be Las Vegas Athletics, formerly of Oakland, are going to be in there. So,
really?
The net impact. Yeah. I mean, that Henry Hill, the famous character from Goodfellas, a movie we talked about last week, there was a famous situation where they paid a guy from Boston College years ago to, I don't know if it was take a dive or that kind of thing. But I just read a recent article. There's an NBA player under investigation for, his behavior during game time. I mean, that's incredible to think about.
I mean, you can't have billions of dollars floating around outside the game. It's just impossible, right?
I don't know how you regulate it. And further, I think it takes weeks. Let me put it to you that way. I do know how you regulate it because we just, put forth some notions. I don't know how you completely eliminate it. I'm okay with some of the things you're putting forth as long as people's volition to make bad choices, yes, bad choices, is still protected. So
yeah, I can totally see that.
Timmy, you have an ad read this week, right?
Yeah. So, John, what I'd like you to do, I'm going to jot this down as you go. Give me an adjective, please.
Okay. Unsavory. Well, we were just talking about gambling. How about unsavory?
Okay. Give me a noun.
I hear you typing away. What are you doing over there?
Oh, we'll get to it, John. We'll get to it.
Oh, okay. Okay. A noun?
Yep.
Football.
Okay. Give me another noun.
Betting.
Okay.
We'll keep in line with what we were discussing. How about that?
And give me a verb.
Bet. Now, let's do something fun. How about sprint?
All right. So this is from our friends at Snarker Brothers. Are you having trouble writing your manifesto, staking your intellectual claim, or just looking for a fun party game? Now here's help. Manifesto Mad Libs. So let's try yours, John. Unsavory people count. It's time for the football people to rise up and throw off the betting archy. Sprinting is violence.
I see what you did there. So this is sort of, did you create this software platform you play? It's like Mad Libs, but you plug it in and
Mad Libs
spits it out.
Mad Libs from Snarker Brothers.
My brother sent me one similar, and if after the podcast I'll send you by text. There was one about how to speak like a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's instead of saying I hope you're having a nice day, it's let's level set and talk about efficiencies in your performance on the output of the rising sun, blah blah blah. And it goes through this whole thing, and it's like, you didn't say anything there. It's just unbelievable. No, I like that though.
Did you ever see The Simpsons? And the guy's like, isn't proactive and synergy the words that dumb people say just to say smart? And he's like, I'm fired, aren't I? And they're like, yes.
Well, the one that is I live on LinkedIn because I'm always trying to reach out to certain people. And it is a very valuable resource. I quite literally could probably do my job with Google and LinkedIn and decent Wi-Fi anywhere. That being said, however, what I have noticed is an explosion of change agents. I don't know what that means, but everybody has in their title like human-centered leader, change agent. What kind of BS are you giving me?
When my kids were in diapers, I would have loved a change agent. Come in here. This guy needs to change.
Yeah, touche. Oh, Timmy, that's awesome. So why don't you tell us you have a whack job, right?
I do.
Okay, and now I have a hero.
I'm gonna have to build a case here. So give me a minute.
Okay.
So under federalism, every state has the authority to regulate its doctors. So during the pandemic, states tended to loosen up their rules. But I would virtually link up with people and I'd say, hey, what state are you in? And I would need to check and say, can I practice psychiatry in your state? Those mostly got reset after the pandemic. So Louisiana outlawed the prescription of abortion pills, and a doctor from New York prescribed them to someone in Louisiana. So they acted in accord with their belief. And I'll say the U.S. has a proud tradition of civil disobedience. So the idea behind that is when you make a choice to break a law, you suffer the consequences of your choice. Think of civil disobedience by Thoreau or Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, right? Your example might help change perception. So now enter Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, who sweeps in and won't allow extradition of this doctor from New York who prescribed abortion pills in Louisiana. So this decouples the connection between morals, actions, and consequences. So in the past, I know this has been done when people were facing the death penalty in states that coming from states that didn't have it. I have a keen sense of irony, and in that case, it was done to protect life. But in this case, Kathy Hochul is 180 degrees out of phase. She's standing up for the destruction of life. So where everything Trump does is seen as an assault on our democracy, he's not the only one. This is an assault on the principle of federalism. Louisiana passed a law through democratic processes, and they deserve to have that law enforced in their state.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
and this will play out in the courts. No, that's Kathy Hochul. Yeah. Her husband actually went to Notre Dame.
Huh.
So, yeah, that's right, Ben. We had to sneak that in there.
Yeah.
Notre Dame. Mine is in line with the same thing. A brief history lesson. Do you remember the Saturday Night Massacre? Of course you don't. You and I weren't alive, but do you remember the premise behind the Saturday Night Massacre?
Oh, that was Nixon.
The Nixon administration.
Fired a whole bunch of people. Yeah.
Yep. Ultimately, he wanted to get rid of Archibald Cox, the inspector general. I forget if he was an independent counsel or what have you. And ultimately, do you know who ultimately executed the order? Who finally stepped up and executed the order that Nixon had given?
Was it Dean?
No, Robert Bork.
Bork.
Yeah. Well, we're experiencing one in a similar way this week in real time. My whack job a couple weeks back was Mayor Eric Adams, who I had tremendously high hopes for. He was a former police officer. He converted from the Republican Party. He seemed like a law and order Democrat. It sounds like, unfortunately, he has been swept up in the big city politics of taking bribes and trips and so forth. I'm not privy to the evidence, but from what I understand, the evidence against Eric Adams is enormously strong. And typically when a public official has been indicted, and again, Eric Adams is the mayor of New York, when a public official has been indicted, and there's a separation of powers issue, it typically means that the person is not only guilty, it's not a question of their guilt, it's a question of how long they want to go to prison for, right? So, you have to have a sort of a black and white case. Well, he kind of did what a lot of people are now doing, which is he sucked up to Trump. And of course, the Trump Justice Department has ordered the prosecution of Eric Adams to be dropped. To their credit, 7 prosecutors in the Southern District of New York have resigned, one of whom is a woman named Danielle Sassoon, who went to Harvard, went to Yale Law School. She was the acting attorney general for the Southern District of New York. Rather than drop the case, she resigned this week. And just today, and again, 7 people, 5 from the Public Ethics Department, which prosecutes, public officials and so forth, have resigned as well. This is not a judgment on Eric Adams' guilt or on his innocence, but rather it's a testament to, this is a country with a rule of law, and these people are being asked to do something that they feel violates that ethic and have decided to resign. Now, that being said, today, her, I guess it was her number 2 or number 3, a fellow by the name of Hagen Skotten, Skotten, resigned, and he decided he was not going to go quietly into that good night. Very much along the lines of the Saturday Night Massacre, he sort of wanted to write a resignation letter that I think was going to be judged well by history, right? Mm-hmm. And in his resignation letter, in which he says, I'm resigning, because this is typically what people do. If you're being asked to do something you object to, and this does sound shady. It sounds like very much a quid pro quo. We'll find out more in the weeks to come. But again, it's a Saturday Night Massacre in real time. And in this resignation letter, he writes the following. You ready for this, Timmy? No system of ordered liberty can allow the government to use the carrot of dismissing charges or the stick of threatening to bring them again to induce an elected official to support its policies and objectives. Any assistant U.S. attorney would know that our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials in this way. If no lawyer within earshot of the president, and by that he's referring to President Trump, is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you will eventually find someone who is either A, a fool, or B, enough of a coward to file your motion. But it was never going to be me. Danielle Sassoon and Hagen Skotten are both Supreme Court clerks. Danielle Sassoon worked for one of your heroes, Antonin Scalia. She clerked for he.
Oh, yeah.
Hagen Skotten clerked for John Roberts. And these 7 individuals are truly my heroes of the week because it reminds us that we are truly a nation of laws. And to your point, I don't know if Kathy Hochul is right. I don't know if Trump is right. What I do know, though, is we are a nation of laws and those have to be abided by. And I think this is a testament to it. So I think yours and mine kind of go together, right?
They do. And the other side is when you're willing to make a stand, live with the consequence. I mean, these people gave up their jobs, right? Because this mattered so much to them, right?
Yeah. And I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this week that said, look, Trump may very well defy a judicial order, and then we have a legitimate constitutional crisis. But everybody running around yelling the world's on fire or running around with their hair on fire saying the world's about to end and Trump's an assault on democracy, you might be the boy who cried wolf, and when it actually happens, nobody's going to pay attention. So pick your battles. Yeah. And to me, this was a big one. So I was impressed.
And democracy is being assaulted on multiple fronts. Well, as these cases demonstrate. So
yeah, I always say, look, Joe Biden had no legitimate right to get rid of student loans. Same thing applies with a lot of stuff that Donald Trump is doing. But you have to remember that if you're a Democrat, you got to remember what Joe Biden did, too. So, yeah. Well, Timmy, as always, I thought it was great. Let's get into gambling and victimless crimes. Heck, we can talk about this some more. And if you remember any movies this week, folks, please feel free to send them in.
Sure.
But this is John Bolin. Yeah, this is John Bolin signing off saying, hey, have a great week. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. By the time you hear this, it'll be post-Valentine's Day. So if you forgot flowers, you're going to be in the doghouse anyway. But it's signing off saying, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances.
And this is Tim saying, if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Take care out there.